There's your average true crime story. And then there are these. Welcome back, and thanks for stepping into the shadows tonight, where things are about to get really weird. Here are the top 10 true crime twists no one saw coming. Let's open up the files. We start with John Darwin. In 2002, Darwin was officially declared missing and presumed dead after his canoe washed up on the shore near Seaton Carew, England. His wife Anne mourned publicly. Sympathetic friends gathered. A funeral happened. Except John wasn't dead. He was hiding in a secret room behind a fake wall in their house. The Darwins were in debt and John faked his death to claim life insurance. For 5 years he lived in secrecy, even applying for jobs under fake names. It all came crashing down in 2007 when the couple was spotted together in Panama, grinning in a real estate photo. The twist? They told their kids he was dead too. Imagine finding out Dad wasn't just alive, but was wearing a disguise and scamming insurers the whole time. In 2008, a man in California got a strange voicemail. It was just static. Until he played it backward, it contained the sounds of a woman screaming and a street name. That name led to an abandoned lot and a body. Investigators traced the phone number of the voicemail to a stolen device. But get this, the timestamp on the recording was 2 days after the woman had supposedly died. No one knows who sent it. No one knows how it was recorded. But the case, once cold, suddenly had noise, and a very creepy lead. A woman in Arizona was dating a soft-spoken man she met at her local bookstore. Into poetry. Great listener. One day she finds an old FBI most wanted sketch online that looks eerily like him. Same mole, same eyes. She thinks maybe it's a coincidence, until her neighbour mentions that her boyfriend's name doesn't match his car registration. Turns out he was a fugitive who'd been on the run for 20 years after a double murder in Rhode Island. He'd assumed a new name, opened a cash-only bookshop, and dated her while hiding in plain sight. He made one mistake, using the same fake name twice. When a woman in California was arrested for a minor drug offence, her DNA was entered into a national database. A few weeks later, that same DNA flagged a match for a string of unsolved violent crimes. Detectives were stunned until they realised she couldn't have physically committed any of them. Then they discovered the DNA wasn't hers. It was from a bone marrow transplant she'd received. Her blood was hers, but her saliva and some internal tissue? They genetically matched the donor, a man. Not only did this clear her, but it rewrote how forensic evidence can be used and misused in court. In 2010, a man in Argentina was called in for jury duty. He agreed, sat through the trial, asked intuitive questions, seemed engaged. But after the case ended, a clerk ran a standard identity verification and found out he wasn't who he claimed to be. He was actually the killer in the case, the man on trial with a cleaned up appearance and stolen ID. Authorities realised he'd managed to delay his own trial, swap identities, and sneak into the jury pool to steer the outcome. The twist, he nearly got away with it and was only caught because he filled out all juror forms too perfectly. Classic overachiever energy. A woman in Texas believed to have been murdered during a robbery was mourned and buried. A suspect confessed, with details matching the scene. Case closed. Until the woman walked into a police station 2 months later. Not a lookalike. Actually her. The real twist. She had been kidnapped, escaped, and had no idea someone had confessed to her murder. Investigators questioned the suspect again and uncovered the chilling truth. His confession was entirely made up, motivated by guilt from a completely different crime he'd committed years earlier. Turns out, fiction can be more believable with the right amount of grief. In South Carolina, a real estate agent arrived at a large estate house for a scheduled showing. Her client, a woman, said she was staying longer than expected and wanted one last walkthrough. Half an hour later, the agent was missing. A week later, cameras in the house captured a man, her supposed client, living there, quietly. He had been squatting in an empty wing of the house for months, luring in agents posing as a potential buyer. The twisted part, he never attacked, he just watched from the shadows. The agent wasn't harmed, but she'd fled, convinced she was being followed. She was right. A crossword puzzle tucked into a local London charity magazine in 2003 held a strange final clue. He did it, he always does it. Simple enough. Until a retired detective solving the puzzle realised that the clue's answer was the name of a suspect in an active case, the murder of a vintage book dealer. The detective dug in. 6 clues subtly mirrored events from the crime scene. Turns out the man who had printed the crossword was the killer himself, hiding his guilt in plain sight through riddles. Hidden in a grid of black and white squares, his subconscious couldn't resist the spotlight. In the late 90s, a man in Florida called 911 to report a hit and run. He said he saw someone get struck, saw the car, and gave great details. Solid eyewitness stuff. But then, cameras proved no one else was around. Forensic evidence was missing. And the man, he started contradicting himself. Eventually he slipped up. He described something that hadn't been released to the public. A single keychain left behind at the scene. That slip opened an avalanche. The twist. He was actually the killer. He invented the eyewitness to manipulate the outcome and incriminated himself without realising it. 2019, a man in Ohio is found dead in his apartment. Natural causes. Open case. Except his phone continued sending texts days after his death. At first, friends thought it was someone using his device, but the messages got personal. They referenced experiences only he could know. Authorities jumped in. The texts came from an apartment across the hall. Turns out a neighbour had stolen his SIM card and was impersonating him. Badly. But it worked just long enough to access bank accounts and changing crypto keys. The spine-tingling bit. One last message said, "Don't trust the man in 4C." There was no apartment 4C. Next time someone tells you they've heard it all, show them this video. Thanks for sticking around this long, seriously. There's a new drop every weeknight, so hit subscribe if you haven't already. And maybe, don't trust everything that looks wrapped up in a bow. That was your dose of the unknown. See you in the next file. Subscribe for more of the unknown.